Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yay. What is your name? Welcome.
This is John.
John. John, thank you for joining. Where are you joining from?
Here in West Seattle.
In West Seattle. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You're going to be on video today or just the audio?
Part of it, I'm actually in the middle of finishing up preparing. So part of it will be on and part of it I will be on.
No problem. Oh, there you are. Glad to see you. I didn't mean to force you to come on video, but you know, it's
I prefer whenever I can.
okay. You were breaking up a little bit, either your connection or my connection's a little, but that's okay. We'll see. Yeah, you're definitely breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, that's good. We'll wait a couple more minutes. Not too many signed up for our RSVP for this session, so we'll see. Okay, but you can still hear me, yeah? Now I can't hear you at all. No? Oh, no. Oh, bummer. Still not hearing? Okay. Welcome back, John. Do you hear me now? Do you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Wow, so it's absolute silence on your side. You're muted, John. It shows me you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Can you hear me now?
Okay. And now I can hear you. It's weird because I didn't change anything on the microphone, but for some reason I stopped hearing you before. And then when I could hear you, anyway, all good now.
All good now. Wonderful. So John, looks like it's just you and me. And if it's okay with you, we will continue.
Absolutely.
Right. So actually, you know, this reminds me of a story that I'd heard where, you know, a monk was visiting a school in India. And, you know, he came in late in the evening. He was just going to meet some people he knew, and a student from the university went to receive him at the airport or train station, maybe. Yeah. And so this monk was speaking to this young man, and you know, asked him what he was doing. He was saying, you know, and this was Christmas time, just before Christmas. And the student just replied he was a student. And so the monk said, you know, I love speaking to students. Do you think you can arrange for a talk tomorrow? I have some free time at 3 p.m. And this was late in the evening. So the student said, sure, I'll try. Let's see what happens. So next day morning, there was a morning meditation, and the student goes to meet the monk. And the monk then says, okay, is there a talk today? He said, yeah, I have sent it out information to my fellow students. Let's see. And the monk asked, you know, how many students do you expect will be there? So the student, you know, he says, I have no idea. It's close to Christmas. This was a last minute meeting. I have no idea. Then the monk looks at him and says, you know, doesn't matter. If just you are there and you're interested, I and you will talk.
Love it. Love it. It's very much like that.
So that student happened to be who's a person who is my guru now. So obviously different situation, but
oh, nice.
Nonetheless, we'll get going. So okay. John, what you do?
So I'm actually, I retired last year. I'd worked for Starbucks for 18 years. That was kind of my last spot. So I did various roles within the CFO organization and some supply chain work, project management work while I was there. So, so that's one of the ways I've kind of been spending some time over this last year is spending some time like doing daily yoga practice. I'm starting to get more into some time dedicated for meditation and just really wanting to learn more about it and kind of hear other stories and build from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm glad to hear you're very young, you're retired. I'm retired too, so that, you know, sort of, and I'll introduce
Fantastic.
myself as well. So let me just share my screen. I had a few slides, and we'll of course keep this interactive. We can go any which way you'd want to go. I just have some material. Are you familiar with Kriya Yoga at all?
I'm not.
Okay, great. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
You got a beautiful setup there, John, in your home.
Oh, the little home office here, yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
I like yours as well. I was just noticing. I love big, beautiful bookcases, especially most of the reading I do now is on a tablet, right? I just get everything electronically from the library, so you don't have a chance to build up a big library anymore. So I like the look.
You can see my screen?
I can.
So that's me, Amit Chatterjee. Many people have trouble with my name. I tell them, you know, if you know baseball, then I am a mitt. I'm a mitt.
There you go. And I will never forget that now.
Yes, people never forget that. I am Amit. So what I had in mind is a little bit of introductions. You of course introduced yourself. I will introduce myself. I'll talk a little bit of Kriya Yoga. This is the second of our meetup sessions. So in the last session, I did cover some aspects of Kriya Yoga, which I thought instead of repeating that, I'll go into some other aspects, but we'll see how that works out. And then I'll introduce the lineage of masters, the pictures that you see at the top of the screen, as just as it is when you're learning anything, you learn it from the experts. So the masters or the teachers who have been teaching Kriya Yoga, and it's a lineage. I'll talk a little bit about that. So this lineage is an unbroken lineage for more than 150 years, 160 years now. And the master on the right is the current master and my guru. He was the student that I was referring to in that story.
And what does it mean, if you're going to get into this, just tell me to pause, but what does it mean to be the master of this lineage?
Perfect. So the way this works is, or if you can hold that question, I'll come back to it when I introduce that.
Okay.
When I introduce that lineage. For now, think of a master as a teacher. Okay. So and it's a lineage of teachers. So the person on the right, he learned all about Kriya Yoga from the person on his right, and he learned it from his teacher, and so on and so forth. So that this dates back to 150 years ago. And the way it worked in India, and all of them are from India in the ancient ages. And this teacher-student relationship in India is age-old, thousands of years old. And the way it worked is when kids were really young, maybe 5 years, or even 5 to 10 years, the parents would send them to a guru. A guru is a master who usually lived in a forest, in a hermitage, meditating, studying scriptures. So the student would be sent to the guru's home to learn. And he would be hosted by the guru. So it would be like a residential thing. And, he'd do household work and help the guru with whatever chores he could at that age. And the guru would teach him. And so the guru was the master, and they would learn all aspects. They would learn secular stuff, vocational stuff, as well as spiritual stuff. And typically this would go on till almost 25 years of age. So they would literally learn everything from that guru. And then they could decide, if they wanted to dedicate their life to spirituality, they could continue in that hermitage. Or if they wanted to go back to the world and do something, that's fine. So in the olden days in India, they would have 4 stages of life. Almost, if you think of somebody living 100 years, so the way that would work is the first 25 years would be student life. So there was a Sanskrit name for that, but you learn what you need to from your teacher, who is known as the guru or the master. And then the next 25 years is householder's life, where, if you want to get married, you have family, you do whatever you want for the next 25 years. The third 25 years is retired life, where you give up your worldly responsibilities, maybe with your wife and, just you, and if the kids have all grown up, you retire to the forest again, and you maybe set up your own hermitage or a place to stay.
Okay.
And the last 25 years is a life of a renunciate. Maybe one partner or the other might have passed away. There's nothing else for you to do in the world. So you become a monk or a total renunciate. So that's how it usually used to work. And the teacher, the guru, of course, the guru also at some point will pass on. But before he did, he would choose one of his students who is a worthy student to continue with that tradition. So he would become the guru, next guru.
Got it.
And that's how it would go on. So that's how that lineage was. And everything was taught teacher to student. It was not learned through books. You'd learn something that day, you'd practice it in meditation. Next day you'll discuss and do it that way. So that's how usually it worked. And Kriya Yoga is an ancient tradition. It has evolved and it continues to evolve that way. So I'll talk about the lineage of masters. I'll talk about chakras, which are energy centers in the body. Then this specific talk, I wanted to introduce 8 limbs of yoga. You have done some yoga. Have you heard about the term 8 limbs of yoga?
So I have not, and I'll be very specific about the kind of yoga I've done has been more yoga for strength building or for loosening up. It's not been integrated into a meditation practice. Even when I've done like classes at my gym or something like that, they're pretty basic. So it's more about stretching, I think.
Perfect. In fact, you will see that what we call as stretching, it is one of the limbs of the 8. So it is an integrated system. People have a sort of a specific definition of what yoga is now. I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk about 8 limbs of yoga, and then I'll share with you a beautiful concept where I have found that this 8 limbs of yoga, we are always practicing that throughout in course of our daily life. We just don't realize that that's what we are doing. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about Kriya Yoga initiation for those who are interested. And throughout, if you have questions, and since it's just you and me, please chime in, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Great.
So a little bit about me. So I was initiated into Kriya Yoga in 2002. So this is my 20th year of practice of Kriya Yoga. I still feel I'm a student of Kriya Yoga, although in 2019, my teacher, my guru, he approved me to teach Kriya Yoga as well. And he reminded me, when you're teaching Kriya Yoga, just remember that you're still a student. So you share what you have learned, and in that sharing and in those discussions, you learn more. So that's how this path evolves. And really the masters are the guiding force, and they inspire you. So that's how I think about myself. In my corporate life, I spent 30 years with Microsoft Corporation. I joined Microsoft in 1988, and I had a goal of doing 30 years, which I did. And then my goal was not to do 31 years, because this could continue forever.
Yeah, it's a good goal.
Yeah, so it was in 2018, I decided that I would retire. And around that same time, my teacher asked me to teach. So then I thought, that's perfect. I'll devote my time to this. Of course, then the pandemic happened and all kinds of stuff, but here we are trying to still see how we progress with this. So I was a developer, worked on a variety of Windows version, from Windows 2.1 to Windows 11, Visual Studio, Azure, and I was a partner development manager. Also in my career for 15 years, I had moved back to India, still with Microsoft, when they set up their development center there. And for a few years, I was the managing director for the India Dev Center. Sorry. Oh,
okay, still, I see your lips moving, but I don't.
I thought you. Let's see. Let's see. You're not muted. Can you hear me now? No. So I presume you can't hear. John, you still there? Oh, okay, you cannot hear me. Oh. Still can't hear you. I'm here. I'll keep talking in case you are able to hear. I think it's still the two of us. Your video is back. Okay, no audio. Okay, no audio. Audio still. Your video is back. You're mute. Can you unmute? Now, no, still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Okay. Okay, I think
back. Sorry about that. I don't know. It must be a Zoom issue. My signal shows really good, but it just completely dropped out. So
no worries. You can hear me now, right?
I can. Yeah.
All right. So okay, let me share back. No worries. We'll see if we can get through this or whatever is the plan for us today.
Sure.
So yeah, I was just talking about myself. So there, so then, you know, one of the things that I'll talk a little bit about, I think Kriya Yoga has sort of helped me stay centered in my job, because Microsoft is, of course, a stressful place with lots of expectations and, you know, and you got to do well and all of that. But Kriya Yoga has helped a lot. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about what Kriya Yoga is. So this word, so yoga, of course, now there are hundreds of different types of yoga, but the word yoga essentially comes from a Sanskrit word, and it means union. Yoga is an union of two things. And what specifically it stands for is yoga is the union of body and soul. So in the Eastern tradition, we believe that there is divinity in each one of us. Each one of us are potentially divine, but we have just forgotten about that. If you just think about ourselves and a simple physiological aspect of ourselves, we are breathing, we are alive because of the breath. But who is it, or what force, what process within us is drawing this breath 24 hours a day? Science, at least, even now, hasn't quite come to this. They say, you know, it's a process, it goes on. But if you go back into what process it is, you know, they can't, at some point they get blocked, because today in science, this concept of consciousness is not very well understood. In fact, now they are trying to understand consciousness, and there are topics called hard problems of consciousness, etc. They're grappling with the fact that, is consciousness a byproduct of the brain, or is consciousness fundamental? In Indian Vedic line of thinking, they have always felt that consciousness is the only thing in the universe. We'll not go into that topic, but that is the divinity. That's that power within us. So yoga, they felt that, okay, if there is some divinity within us, but we keep forgetting that, How do we remind ourselves that whatever we are able to do is because of the power of divinity within us? And if we are able to remember that, then we will see, and they have experienced that life, the outlook towards life completely changes.
Sure.
Instead of thinking we are just an individual and you are an individual, you get a deeper meaning of life. Nonetheless, in different religions, they call this the soul. So if we just use the term that there is some power within us, which is the soul, then yoga is that union of the body and soul. What that means is a body without a soul is a dead body, right?
Yep.
It's just a dead body. On the other hand, if you think of a soul without a body, that's like spirit or a ghost. So it's only when the body and soul are both functioning together, we are able to function as human beings, the greatest creation of God. So that, can we remember that in every action? That we are just not the body. We are the body and the soul together.
Right.
And so that is yoga. And Kriya, the other word with it, Kriya also has two parts, two syllables, Kri and Ya. Kri comes from the word karma. You might be familiar with karma. Karma in that sense really means any action, anything that we do. You and I are talking right now, that's a kind of action. You're thinking, that's another kind of action. So any action that we do is Kri, is represented by Kri. So you can imagine anything that you do in your life, from sleeping, eating, working, anything else is action. And Ya is the power of the soul. So here again, they say that just if you realize that any action you're doing is because of the power of the soul, then that is Kriya Yoga. That is Kriya Yoga. So, at a fundamental level, that's what Kriya Yoga is. And we'll go a little bit more into what meditation, etc. is. So yoga means union of body and soul, which is the divinity within us. And Kri means any action. Ya is the power of soul. So at a fundamental level, it's a path where you try to perceive that all action is done by the power of soul within us. Okay, so the soul is taken care of, and that's what Kriya Yoga is. So and from that perspective, Kriya Yoga is non-sectarian. It's not a religion really. It predates, Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, everything.
Wow. Okay.
Because there was this is from, and in fact, they say that Kriya, so this is what I covered in the last class. I wasn't going to go in there, but just to share with you, they say that in the beginning, with the beginning of the civilization and humankind, Kriya was practiced by everybody. And there is a scripture which is very famous in the East, known as the Gita. I don't know whether you have heard about that, Bhagavad Gita.
I'm not.
Okay, that's essentially it's God incarnates as Krishna, who is one of the forms of God, and he instructs a disciple, which then becomes essentially a message for all seekers. And there he says that he taught this yoga to the first king of mankind, and that king then taught to his disciples or his children, and so on. It continued. And since the kings at that point were practicing this yoga, everybody in the kingdom was also practicing. But with the passage of time, this technique got lost, and it was kept alive in the caves of the Himalayas by ascetics who were extremely strict about this practice, and they would only teach it to the most sincere students. Then in 1861, a mysterious saint, who is the leftmost of the teachers on the top of the screen, he wanted to reintroduce this to the world. So he found another person who was the guy on his left. Yep. And that's how this thing has started. So they say Kriya Yoga was from the beginning of time, when there was no religion, nothing, and it was resurrected in the modern times 150, 160 years ago. So hence it's non-sectarian. Anybody can practice it. In fact, our teachers say that, if you are a Christian, you will be a better Christian if you understand the concepts of Kriya Yoga, because it's the concept of breath and soul and your core essence. Or if you're a Hindu, you'll be a better Hindu. So there are no restrictions on that. Also no restrictions on diet or lifestyle. All of that come on its own if change happens. But the main thing is just to perceive that all action is done by the soul.
Okay.
And the beauty of this is that, the soul is within myself, it's within you and within everybody as well. So if you realize that, our interactions with each other also change a lot. How can I look down upon you? How can I hate you? How can I abuse you? If I realize that the power which is within me, which makes me this individual, is the same power that's within you as well.
Right.
So at a fundamental level, if we understand this, then relationships become different. Life itself becomes different. And in that context, spirituality is nothing but the perfect expression of love, compassion, kindness in every word, action, and interaction. That's what we define spirituality is. So the yoga that we do, the meditation that we do, is essentially trying to get us to the point where we have clarity within us, we have purity within us, that then we can come back to life. And in everything that we do, we bring that love, compassion, and kindness. So that is really the goal for yoga. That's why it says that, yoga is union. You always feel connected to divinity and you act accordingly.
Very clear.
Okay.
Good.
But to do this, what becomes a blocker is our mind, because our mind has own, it's distracted, it has its own concepts, etc. We will not so much talk about mind in this one. I will briefly talk about it, but so that essentially is yoga. So from this slide, we will take away that yoga is union. We're just trying to be aware, or trying to get to the point where we realize that any work that we do is because of the divinity within us. Okay. So now I'll talk a little bit about these masters. So I briefly introduced them to you anyway. So Mahavatar Babaji, the one person on the left, he's a mysterious saint. They say that he's still alive. He's mysterious. He materializes. He has, in fact, over this course of 150 years, he has shown up and essentially in a human body interacted with several of these teachers. It's all very mysterious. So he introduced it to the gentleman on his left, Lahiri Mahasaya, and he was a householder. He had 5 kids after he learned Kriya Yoga. He was working during British India in the railways. The job was not enough to take care of his large family. He would do tuition and other stuff, but he still managed to practice Kriya Yoga. And many say that Babaji chose him to be the first person to propagate this, to give us the message that it is for normal human beings who have job, who have family, who are struggling to make ends meet. It isn't just for the renunciates who are in the Himalayan caves and have nothing else to do. So that was his message. So over the course of this 150 years, it essentially has been a teacher to his disciple, and then the disciple, when he becomes the teacher, anoints his successor in time, and so on and so forth. So for 1861 till now, 150, 160 years, that's the lineage, and it's unbroken lineage, which in itself is a phenomenal thing, because in this world, you can imagine somebody can profess that they have knowledge, they have learned something, but really, what is the veracity, what is the authenticity of that thing? It becomes difficult at times to figure that out. Whereas when you have a lineage of teachers backing that, and you read about them and you read about what they accomplished, and then you realize that it's the same message which is continuing over generations. It provides tremendous authenticity to that path, and also a promise that in the future, that sort of continues. Does it make sense?
It does, and I notice here in the lineage, it's not displayed like a family tree that you have.
Correct.
One guru teaching 2, teaching 4, teaching 8, teaching 16. So is that intentional, or is it just picking one person out of each
So what they do is each a teacher, let's say the second teacher, because the first one just taught the technique to the second one and disappeared, and the second one then started teaching in course of his time. He had many disciples. So what he would do as a guru, before he passes, he has to pick one of them who's the most qualified.
Okay.
And these are all realized master, meaning each one of them have realized that they are the soul within it. They have realized that there is a reality beyond their mind and body, that this consciousness, this one consciousness is essentially who they are. And when they realize that, they're fit to be a teacher. Did that concept sound vague?
Yep, absolutely does. Makes sense.
Okay, so this is the essence of this is there is a spirit or a power within us, and it is the same power that is within you and me. While we are two individuals at a fundamental level, we are the same. I'll give you an example. This is a little tricky concept, but I'll give you an example. Imagine there is one sun in the sky. Yeah, although in Seattle, that sun doesn't almost come out. But so there is one sun in the sky. Okay, let's say there is a lake, Lake Washington. Okay, so now let's say there is a reflection of the sun on the lake. We can understand this. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Yep. Now, if we consider every drop of the lake also to be a unit of water, maybe there is a reflection of the sun in each one of the drops of water as well. Or if you arrange for pots of water in your garden, let's say the sun might be reflecting in each pot that has water, right?
Yeah.
So there is one sun. It is reflected in every one of these pots, and that reflected sun provides a little light within that pot. Just comes from the reflection of the sun itself in there. Right. So in Vedic or Advaita philosophy, Advaita means non-dual. They say that there is only one reality. So there is really only one sun or spirit which manifests in each of us as a reflected spirit, which provides the power for us to act. But at a fundamental level, there is only one spirit in this whole universe, and everything is a manifestation or an appearance of that spirit.
Okay.
So this is a deep concept.
Sure.
We'll not get caught up in that. But anyway, that is what, at a fundamental level, let's say that if I were to ask you, John, who are you? You will say, look, I am John. I'm this person. I worked in Starbucks, and I have this body. But I might say that, hey, John, that's I understand. That's your body. That's your personality. But that is yours.
Yeah.
But you're probably not that. When you're sleeping at night, your body is completely at rest. Yeah, you don't remember that you were the CFO or in the CFO organization of Starbucks, but you are still there. But you're no longer the body that you were talking about. So who are you? You might say, I'm the mind. I am the thoughts, the emotions, which is behind the body. So you may say, okay, I agree. The body is mine, but I am this personality within the body. Then I might ask you, so then, John, what happens in deep sleep when the mind seemingly stops as well? They're not even dreams. There's not even anything. Who are you then? Your body is at rest. Your mind has stopped, but you're still there. Who are you? So as the essential answer, which is very difficult to grasp, is that you are the consciousness within. There is a consciousness within, which is separate from the body, separate from the mind, but it is the one which makes all of this work. For example, another analogy is, think of the different kinds of lights and electrical equipments in your room, right? A light works in a certain way, the AC works in a certain way, the heater works in a certain way. But the thing which makes it work is the electricity, right? It's the same electricity which is in each one of these devices. But the devices function in different ways, right? So the essence, if the electricity was there, not there, none of this will work. And it is the same electricity which is in every one of these devices, but they work in different ways. And so they say that even in us, it's the same thing. I'm just like one kind of an electric bulb, and you are another kind of an electric bulb. You manifest differently, I manifest differently. But it is the same consciousness that makes us work. So this is extremely difficult to understand.
It is, but as you're explaining it, and you're doing a great job explaining it, I'm thinking about, did you ever see the movie Avatar?
Yes.
It makes me think about that, how everything is connected, and there is to use electricity, it's like a current running through everything. And
it is exactly
I'm thinking about that as you're speaking.
You're exactly right. In fact, that avatar, the word itself is an incarnation. We are all incarnations of that formless electricity, that formless thing which we give names like God or divinity or anything. That's that consciousness. Yeah. We are incarnations of that. That's why it's an avatar. And so this journey is for us to have that realization. At some point when you're in this, that becomes very clear. And then you can transcend. They say that in the spiritual, what is the ultimate goal of spirituality? The ultimate goal of spirituality are two things. One is attainment of complete happiness, right? If you realize anything in the world that we are doing is to find happiness. We may not realize this explicitly, but we go on vacations, we work, we have family, everything is to find joy or happiness within. But we realize that we have a job, it feels great for a while, and then we are bored. It's transient. We are still seeking for that ultimate happiness. And they say that if you realize that you are that current or that electricity within, that will be ultimate happiness. And then the second thing is cessation of all miseries. It's old age, disease, death. How can we find happiness here? So the path says that the goal to ultimate happiness is to realize that you are that consciousness which is separate from body, mind, and everything else. So the body will be diseased, and that is true, but you will still be able to realize that you are not the body ever. The body is suffering, but you are a witness of that suffering. So a bit of separation comes in, and so you transcend your miseries. So spirituality is that, when you become self-realized, or when you realize that that is who you are, it's not that you will not grow old or you will not have diseases, but you will be able to transcend those miseries and be at peace. The world may change, but you are at peace. So that's what the goal for spirituality is. So when I say a self-realized master, each one of these people, they have realized that, and hence they were made the teacher. That they live in the world like us, but they are able to separate themselves from all the suffering, all the things that happen. And they think that it's a role that they're playing. It's a movie playing out. They're playing the role. I am playing the role of myself. You are playing the role of yourself. It's a movie. In reality, we are not suffering. It's just a movie playing out, but we are caught in that.
I absolutely get that. As you think about in the lineage, as each successor is identified, what are some of the things that might separate them from other students of the same master?
Yes.
Is it just the way they live, the ideals of Kriya Yoga, or that may be a bigger question.
That is true, but it is essentially a master is not deemed to be a master till he or she is self-realized. And the guru can tell when somebody is self-realized, that they have essentially understood their essence. Now, could it be that there are 2 students or 3 students, they are self-realized? Then who does the guru choose? That's a difficult one to say. Potentially each one of them could be the teacher.
But it's not something that you self-proclaim, that I'm self-realized.
That's a beautiful question. It has to come from your teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
And each
Okay.
one of this is, by the way, that's another good question, John, because, for example, let me take this example. Lahiri Mahashaya, the second person, he had multiple students who were realized they settled in different parts of the world and they have continued their own lineage. So maybe there is a student here who's not shown in this diagram, who is in India, and he has a lineage going. So it's like multiple, it's like a tree. This is one unbroken lineage. There are multiple, there could be multiple lineages as well.
Okay, got it.
Got it. Okay. So this is an unbroken lineage, includes both monastics and householders. The second person, the fourth person, they were householders. The others were monks, meaning they did not marry. They lived in a temple or an ashram, and they dedicated their life to teaching. And at Kriya Yoga Institute, so this lineage is known as Kriya Yoga Institute. That's the name of the organization. Okay. It has 5 ashrams. Ashrams are sort of temples. I'll show you the one that we have in Seattle. We have one in Seattle area now, and one in Brazil. There are close to 100 centers in the Americas. And in these ashrams, people get together to do group meditations and other stuff that I'll talk a little bit about. And one of the, and they're large, Kriya One, we say people who are practicing Kriya as Kriya One. And they come together as a community, and this is in Monroe, and this is the an ashram which is known as Kriya Dhyana Mandir, or Temple of Meditation. The first 3 words are just the Sanskrit of the last 3 words. So we call this the Temple of Meditation. It's in Monroe. So there's essentially a house where a couple of monks live, and then there's a meditation hall. The picture on the right is a meditation hall. This person who you can see sitting on the chair where my mouse is essentially this teacher. He was visiting last year. This was the Foundation Day event where we inaugurated this ashram.
Great.
And these are people who are gathered for the program. So that's that. And recently we had another event, which was the second Foundation Day. So just this last weekend. Some pictures from that. So now a little bit about, we will go ahead. John, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. So what is the science behind Kriya Yoga? Essentially, the Vedic philosophy shows that in our body, in the spine are some energy centers. Are you familiar with the word chakras at all?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. So so in the spine, there are 7 energy centers, which are known as chakras. And they essentially, and everything happens because of that. All the energy, all the impetus that we get to do any work comes from these chakras. These chakras both have positive and negative qualities. And hence, as human beings, we have positive and negative qualities. Okay. Now, the bottom 5 energy centers are for worldly activities, and they say that the top 2 energy centers are for spirituality or for divinity. Okay. Now, these bottom 5 centers work, there's a beautiful analogy. If you take a look at the fingers of the hand, there are 5 fingers. And there are 5 energy centers, each finger for an energy center, just as an analogy. And they say that as human beings, there are only 5 types of work that we do, only 5 categories of work. Anything that we do in our day will be in one of these 5 categories. Okay. So the little finger represent anything that we do for financial security or for our own safety, a job, buying a home, staying safe, food, clothing, etc. Anything that we do for safety or for financial security is the energy which comes from the bottom center in the spine and represented by the little finger in this analogy. And you'd see amongst the fingers, this finger is actually the smallest. So truly, for our financial needs are actually limited. to survive, to have a comfortable, not a luxurious, but just a comfortable living, we don't need so much money. But we get caught up in earning money, and that becomes a bane of our existence. But anyway, any work that we do for earning money, etc., is from the bottom center, the energy in the bottom center. Some of the other centers will be clearer. The second center is in the spine, behind the genital. And you can understand this is the center for procreation, for having family, for family relationships. So any energy, that we need for family and relationships come from the second center. And this center is the second finger in the hand. Now, in our culture, this is known as the ring finger, right? You'll see how that analogy is. When we put in a ring, we say we are in a relationship, right? Okay. So, and you can hear me, right, John? I'm wondering whether you're still there. You're there? Okay, I think I can. You can hear me? I cannot. So I think you're breaking in and out again. Okay. Okay. And is that working? Can you hear? Okay, perfect. So I'll keep going. Please chime in and write something if you stop hearing me. Okay. So so the second finger is the ring finger is for family relationship. The third one, the middle finger, this is actually the biggest finger in our hand, and that corresponds to this energy center behind the navel in the spine, and it is the energy which helps in digesting food. This is essentially our digestive system and the energy behind that. And this really is the biggest need that we have. That's the middle finger, because if our health is not there, nothing else matters, spirituality or job. It's a little disconcerting to not be able to see you. You're still there, yeah? Okay. I'll assume that you're still there. You can maybe type in something to reassure me you're still there. Yeah, okay, got it. So that's the middle finger. Then the index finger, that's the fourth finger. That essentially is for the heart center, our emotions, anything that we do in our life, which is dealing with friends or having emotions, love, hate, etc. That's essentially from the in the fourth center, which is the heart center. And this is where our ego is, and you will see that when we often say, you are my friend, you are not my friend, we use our index finger to point. That's our ego as well. So all activities related to emotions is from this heart center, which is the fourth energy center. And the fifth one is the energy that inspires us to go to a temple, to a church, to find a higher purpose in life, to pursue spirituality. So this is essentially the center which makes us think of a higher purpose in life, maybe church, temple, so on and so forth. So these are the five energy centers. So any work that we do, either it is for financial activities, or it's for family and relationships, or it is friends and emotions, or health and food, or it's friends and relations, or it's for a higher purpose of spirituality. So these are the five categories. Anything that we do in this world are in one of these five, or a derivative of one of these five, and the energy comes from there. So what happens is, if the energy in the navel center is weak, or if your chakra is weak, you will have health problems in life. If the energy in the bottom center is weak, there will be financial difficulties in life. If the energy in the second center, the sacral center is weak, there will be relationship problem, and so on and so forth. Or conversely, if the energy is stronger, then that becomes an asset. So this is how the chakras work, right? And in yoga, in the path of yoga and spirituality, there is a hand posture. You might see that in some places where, if you can see my hand, the three fingers up straight, and then the index finger and the thumb touching, right? This is a beautiful, you would see some of the pictures of divine beings or avatars having this. This actually says that our life is beautiful when the three bottom centers are strong, or the energy there is strong, the financial center, the family center, and the health center. And then we subjugate our ego to the divinity which is within us. So when the index finger is upright and is pointing, that denotes ego. So when the index finger is, bends down to the divinity within us, it's a sign of humility. So they say this is a perfect life where your lower three centers are strong and robust. So your family, your health, your financial security is strong. You realize there is divinity within you, and you're humble about that. So this, they say, is a beautiful symbol of a beautiful life. Okay. So Kriya Yoga is all about essentially energizing these centers, purifying these centers, so the negativity is worn off or polished off, and the positive, strong, positive impressions remain there, so that anything that we can do and anything that we do in our world is for good. And then they say these upper two centers are for divinity. You'll see our body is very interesting, that all of our sense organs, except the skin. So forget the skin, because the skin is there in every part of the body, but everything else, the eyes, ears, nose, hands, feet, anus, genital, everything is below the line of the eyebrows. Okay. So this is a beautiful interpretation there, where they say that below the line of eyebrows, we are for the world. We engage in the world with all our sense organs and our faculties below the line of the eyebrow. If we are able to raise the consciousness above the eyebrows into the cave of the cranium, then you perceive the soul which is within. So the soul, or this power which is making our eyes and ears and hands and feet all work, they manifest through these lower centers. To perceive the soul, you have to raise your consciousness to the higher centers. And then you have a beautiful understanding of what life is. Then you perceive who you really are. So that becomes then Kriya Yoga, where you perceive that divinity. You're one with that divinity. After that, you earn money as much as you can. But if you remember, it's that divinity which is helping you earn money, you will never misuse money. You have family life and relationship, no problem. But you will never abuse anybody in your family. You'd have a good family life. Likewise, for health, for heart, etc. So Kriya Yoga then says that, look, engage in the world with all your faculties, no problem. But just remember, it's the divinity within you which is allowing you to do that. Then play out your role of John in life as beautifully as you can, and you will be an asset in this world. And there will, you will transform your life. So that's why in the previous slide, when I said that, I'll come to that. And that's why I said that in the previous slide, when I said that you don't need to change your life at all. Do everything that you can. But remember, it is that divinity which is manifesting. So your question about all the other centers are subservient to the top two. Yes, they say that really the divinity which is at the top, it is the fontanelle. And from there, it activates all of these centers. So they say that formless God is hiding in us in the top center. God in form is that inspiration in the center behind the eyebrows. Oh, okay. We've lost audio, so we'll wait for John to connect back. I presume you cannot hear still? Oh, you can. Can you hear me now? Hello, John. Can you hear me now? I am speaking. I am speaking. Wonder whether you're able to hear me. Okay. No, so you can hear me. Should I keep going? Oh, there you're back. Okay, perfect. So yes, the divinity is in the top center. They say formless God is here. Here you manifest that formlessness manifests certain qualities which you can perceive in the soul center behind the eyebrows. And these other centers are where the same energy manifests and propels you to do your daily work. Okay. For example, when you're not feeling hungry or you're not able to digest your food, the energy in the navel center is not strong, or it's not active at that point. When that gets activated, you feel hungry, and so on. Okay, so that's how it is. So Kriya Yoga, essentially the technique is to purify these chakras and raise your consciousness to the top. If you were to keep your consciousness at the top and do any work, then your life gets transformed. So that's essentially the theory behind Kriya Yoga. Okay. So next. So and few topics which we had covered in the last was mind control. So that I'll not repeat them here, but I'll give you one clue that our yogis found, is that controlling the mind is extremely difficult. The mind is our greatest asset, but a distracted mind is also our biggest enemy. You can imagine at work, sometimes when we are not able to do what we really wanted to do, it's not that really anybody else is coming in our way. Our mind is coming in the way. And it's the same reason why at night when we want to go to bed, sometimes the mind is racing away and we are not able to fall asleep. So it is the mind. And the yogis figured that to realize who you really are and to get the full benefit of spirituality, you need to be able to control the mind. But that's not easy. But they found out that there is a correlation between breath and mind. That every mood that we have has a different pattern of breathing. When we are angry, our breath is fast. Yes, please do ask. I'm not sure I can hear you, but you can type maybe. Are you typing something, John? I don't. Oh, okay. The before after, is this just an experience, or is it somehow measurable? It is an experience. I mean, it'll show up in your behavior, right? You'll be less angry, less reactive, more grounded. So it's measurable in that sense, but you will certainly be at more peace. Others will find your behavior to be changed. So in that sense, it's measurable. And doctors and scientists, when they measure brain activities, they can see that as well, how the calmness is, etc. So this is measurable in that sense as well. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So now, so they figured out essentially that the Kriya Yoga is, so when you're angry, you have long breath, you're breathing many times a minute. When you're passionate, your breath changes. When you're sad, your breath changes. Every emotion, the breath is different. So they then, and this correlation works the other way as well. They figured that if you can control the breathing and make it more rhythmic and slower, then your mind becomes calmer as well. So this is the technique that Kriya Yoga is based on. It's all about breath. And there are different techniques which, by controlling the breath, sorry, go ahead. But I thought that was it. I thought that was what it intended. Yes, agreed. So that's what it was. Got it. So this is the breathing. So now I'll briefly introduce what I wanted to talk about, the 8 limbs of yoga. Maybe we'll keep it simple. So yoga, they say, is a way of life. Okay, yoga is not just exercise or not just meditation. It's a way of life. And there is this concept known as the 8 limbs of yoga. And it says 8 limbs and not 8 steps. And I'll talk about the reason for that. And there are Sanskrit names for this, which are essentially yama, or moral disciplines. And these are essentially, you can think of them as a set of rules for others. And as human beings, we have a set of rules for interacting with others. For example, non-faithfulness, chastity, non-stealing, non-possessiveness. These are disciplines that talk about. These are how we engage with others. Then there is a set of discipline which is for our own self, like cleanliness, contentment, studying, surrendering to the divine, etc., which are known as niyamas. I'm hoping that you can still hear. Yeah. John, just acknowledge. Can you hear me? Yes, great. Then the third one is what you practice. These are asana, or posture. Okay. So you need, we do various postures for yoga. They are actually one of the limbs of yoga, although many people just interpret them as yoga. Then pranayama, different type of breathing techniques are known as pranayama. That's the 4th limb. Then something called pratyahara, or sense withdrawal, where you withdraw your attention within. Dharana is concentration. From many thoughts, you try to distill your concentration. You're concentrating on something. There are less thoughts. Dhyana, or meditation, is a thoughtless state. If you can reduce the thoughts further, where there are no thoughts, then that is really meditation. And if you can get to that state, you can find bliss or enlightenment because you perceive the self within. So these are the 8 limbs of yoga. And as you see, many people just think of yoga as asana, or they think of meditation. And the reason they say these limbs, and not steps, it's not sequential in that sense. For example, we have hands and legs and mouth and feet and ears and eyes. We use them based on the need. It's not that we only sequentially use them. So likewise, these steps, these parts of the yoga are to be used as the occasion demands. Okay. Now I'll give you a beautiful example about how I was saying that we are actually practicing all of these steps all the time in every activity. We do not realize it. And the power of a yogic life is when you become aware of it. I'll give you a simple example. Do you like cooking, John? Okay, great. So we will use 8 limbs of yoga in cooking. Imagine you have invited some friends to come to your home and you're going to cook a delicious meal for them. Okay. So first of all, so you get into the kitchen. Let's see the steps which are involved. First of all, you have to observe certain discipline in the kitchen because there are appliances, there are knives, there's fire. If you're not careful, you're going to hurt yourself. So when you operate in the kitchen, you need to observe certain disciplines. This is when you're engaging with these other things in the kitchen, and hence they are the first limb of yoga. Next, you are going to observe some self-disciplines as well. You probably are going to be not dirty and muddy when you're in the kitchen, because that might spoil the meal. So you'll probably be fresh and clean. You also have a recipe to follow, which are a set of rules that you will follow to make that meal, which is niyama, which is these discipline that you will observe yourself. The third one, you're going to have a comfortable posture for cooking. You're not going to be lounging in your sofa, sitting back while you're cooking. You're either standing in front of the oven or sitting on a high chair, whatever comfortable posture. So this is where the postures in yoga come in from. Then the next step, breath control. Imagine when you're cooking, you're not going to dash in from your gym, still breathing heavily and start cooking. You'll settle down, your breath is more normal before you cook. If you're out of breath, if you're panting, you're probably not cooking at that point. So this is pranayama or breath control. Next, withdrawal of sense from all distractions. When you're cooking, you're probably not watching the television at the same time, or you're probably not checking Facebook on your phone. You're withdrawn your attention from these external activities so that you can focus on the task at hand. So that's withdrawal. Then concentration. Now you're actually in the process of cooking. You're following your recipe, you're adding your vegetables, your spices, your butter and all of those, you're stirring. You're doing a set of things completely concentrated on the job of cooking, which is concentration or dharana. Then interestingly, there comes a time in cooking where these ingredients, maybe the vegetables, they just need to boil and be ready. And all you do is you cover that, vessel and let it cook by itself. At that point, all activity stops. No more stirring, no more doing anything. You just wait. The thing is going to cook by itself. And there's this period of calmness there, which is really the sense of meditation. There's no activities, it's just calmness. And then finally, imagine the dish is ready, your friends are in, you serve it to them, and they're all happy with a delicious meal. And the joy that you get within is samadhi. It's a feeling of joy. Okay, makes sense? So these 8 activities we are doing all the time. Imagine any work that you were doing at Starbucks or anything else. You're going to have a set of rules that you're expected to follow. That's your team culture. It's how you interact with your customers or your team members. There's some discipline necessary. That's yama. There's some self-discipline necessary, some abilities, some self-training that you're going to equip yourself with. You're going to have ergonomics at work. You're going to figure out the right posture for working so that you have a comfortable working environment. That is asana. Your breath is going to be calm and steady for focused work. You'll withdraw your senses from external distractions. You're going to focus on creating the best product, whatever that product be, whether that's a gardening thing or something for Starbucks or something for Microsoft. And at some point, your customers are going to experience it. At that point, you have done your best. You just wait for the feedback to come in. There's a sense of calmness. You have done your best. The product is with your customers. You're going to just wait for their feedback. And then as the feedback comes in, you're going to have joy, good or bad. You've done your best. You get to hear something where the product's working beautifully and you have that joy, or maybe the product are deficient and you still have joy that, okay, your customers let you know what's not working so that you can fix it. So this ultimately, everything is about samadhi. Everything is about joy. And in every step that we do in our life, we are practicing yoga. But we do it without realizing these steps. Just imagine the power that we will have when we are conscious about these steps. And you're intentional about the discipline. You're intentional about the posture. You're intentional about your breathing. The end product, the joy becomes that much more. I'll stop for a moment. Does that make sense? Yeah, perfect. So now what I will do, if it's okay with you, let's just practice a short session of meditation. Okay? I'll guide you with some steps. And we will just focus on a few things here. The only posture we will have is just your spine straight. That's all. And I will ask you to bend forward at one point. Remember that mudra where just bending your head is a sign of humility, actually. And and then we will be just watching the breath, and we will be doing some deep inhalation and exhalation, right? We'll just see maybe 10 minutes to see whether we have a feel of this. All right. So I'll stop sharing for a moment, and then I'll go full screen, and then we will do this. So let us close the eyes. Just be comfortable where you are, but keep the spine straight. All the chakras are in the spine. When the spine is straight, the life energy flows freely through the chakras. Calmly bring your attention to the midpoint of your eyebrows. This is the soul center. Yogis say, this is the pathway to divinity within. Just bring your attention there and calmly watch your breath. Just noticing the inhalation, some air coming in through your nostrils. Exhalations, air flowing out through the nostrils. No attempt to change the breath. Just observe, just notice how the body inhales and exhales on its own. Calmly watch the breath. Watching every inhalation, every exhalation. Who is drawing this breath? What power is drawing this breath day and night? We are alive because of the breath. One day, we will exhale and there will not be any inhalation. The body will die. But we are grateful we are alive now. We inhale. We are alive. We are grateful to the breath. The breath is our strength. The breath nurtures us. It is the power of divinity which is drawing the breath. Each breath reminds me the divine is with me all the time. When I'm alone and I feel sad, the breath reminds me that the soul is still with me. Watch every inhalation, every exhalation. Perhaps you feel a sense of calmness within. The mind is now just watching the breath. as opposed to running here and there. Still watching every inhalation, every exhalation. Now take a slow, long, and deep inhalation, filling your lungs completely. Hold the breath for a moment and gently bend forward with your head going towards your knees. And exhale. Normal breathing again with your head down. Again, watching the inhalation and exhalations. Maybe you feel some heaviness in your head as oxygenated blood goes more to the brain, calmly watching the breath. Bowing a little is a sign of humility, that you realize in this beautiful world there is an intelligence which is beyond our comprehension, which makes the universe, nature, all of us work the way we do. Nature is beautiful. This intelligence is magnificent. Bowing acknowledges this intelligence, this divinity which is in play within us, around us all the time. Calmly watch the breath. Every breath is a new moment in life. Every breath is an opportunity to do something good. We are grateful for the divine for every breath. More heaviness in the head. Still all the attention within. Now take another deep, long inhalation. Holding the breath, gently sit back up straight again. And exhale. Normal breathing again. Now we will practice a few moments of deep inhalation, deep exhalation. Take a slow, long, deep breath, filling all your lungs. Exhale, slow, long, and deep. Exhaling all the air out of the lungs. Inhale, slow, long, and deep. Exhale. Inhale, filling yourself with peace. Exhale, spreading joy around. Inhale, peace. Exhale, joy. Inhale, peace within. Exhale love. Inhale peace. Exhale love. Keep inhaling deeply, exhaling deeply. Let every full breath cleanse you, melting away all your stress, all your anxiety. Exhale freshness, joy. Inhale, fill yourself with peace. Exhale, love. With every deep inhalation, melt away all the tension, renewing in life. Exhale, love. Inhale, peace. Exhale, love. Now normal breathing again. Bring all your attention into the cave of the cranium. The body is still like a rock. Notice the breath is feeble. Less thoughts in the mind. Silence within. Maybe hearing some sound or feeling some calmness within. For a few moments, merge into that. Nothing to practice, no thought in mind. Silent meditation. Try. Bring back the attention to the breath again. Back to breath consciousness, body consciousness. Observe how you feel within. Maybe some peace and calmness, which is the result of your meditation and grace of the divine. We will end the meditation with a prayer for the well-being of all. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May everybody fill their life with auspiciousness. Let there not be any misery in anyone's life. Let us pray to the divine that we all have a fulfilling life. Om. Amen. Gently open your eyes. How did that feel, John? Okay. So yes, your audio is still not there, but I got your signal, so that's good. We're just out of time, but I'll finish up with a couple more slides that I wanted to share, and then we'll go from there. So that was a general meditation that we practice. Kriya Yoga meditation is deeper, but Kriya Yoga has to be learned through a process of initiation. As I was saying, when the students would come to the teachers, they would actually, through prayers and through the power of concentration, they cleanse the chakras, and then they teach you the technique. So there is actually a process of learning, which is known as initiation. The next initiation, only if you're interested, of course, there is no pressure, but just sharing this information if you find it handy, will be on the weekend of June 25 and 26 at Monroe. And the way this works is the initiation is a full 2-day event on the weekend. And it is a big commitment for time. But for those who want to learn this path, which can change life, this is a worthwhile investment in that sense. And the way that works is there's registration in the morning. Initiation process starts at 9 a.m. So this is through concentration and prayers, and it depending upon the number of people. If 4 or 5 people show up, it might take about 3 hours. Then we provide a lunch. Then we start teaching the technique. So there are actual different postures, different breathing techniques, etc. And then the first guided meditation is done. So just as I was guiding a general meditation, a full Kriya Yoga meditation is then guided. So that's the end of the first day. And the next day, we start with the meditation again. There are 8 steps, so it's quite involved. People will forget. We start with one more meditation in the morning. We review the techniques. We guide a third meditation at 11. There is lunch. Then we explain the benefits of all the techniques, and we follow up with another meditation. So this is quite involved in this sense. And those who want to get initiated, they bring 5 fruits, 5 flowers, and there's a $180 fee for initiation as a check or a cash. And the beautiful thing, John, I don't know whether you probably would not have heard, in this Kriya, once you're initiated, the divinity within you will perceive through a sound, pulsation, and a light within. It is just so beautiful. The sound, you'll keep your ears closed and it'll be a quiet environment. You'll still hear a sound within, it's ongoing sound. You'll feel a pulsation in your entire body. And with your eyes closed, you will see some light within, which is magical in that sense. Now, don't expect that right after the initiation you're realized. That's the process. That's a natural process. I've been trying working for 20 years of working towards that, but it's a beautiful calming meditation where you perceive the divinity, and it really quietens things down. We have also a website, templeofmeditation.org. There's an event calendar there, and you can find this event in there. And if you choose to register, you can register. And that's all I wanted to cover today, John. Any other questions, or I may not be able to hear. But yes, you have typed in. I'm glad you like this. Yeah, no problem. It was a little disconcerting, but I'm glad we worked through this and you're still there. I'll leave you with my email. Feel free to contact me. And if you have any questions, if I can help you in any which way, please let me know. Okay, and we'll probably have one more meetup session before the initiation on June 23rd. We cover some other aspect maybe and do the meditation. I hope the meditation was, you felt some calmness there? Okay, all right, perfect. Well, thank you, John. Thank you for attending. Glad to have spent this evening with you. You have a fantastic weekend ahead, and maybe we'll meet again.
Okay, good.
Take care. God bless you.